And welcome to another edition of Eye on South Florida. I'm Jake Cashmere. Thanks so much for joining us. Today we are diving into the deep to find treasure. Just off the coast of Jupiter, there's a massive effort underway to capture a piece of history. Jupiter Wreck Incorporated is the company with the rights to salvage treasure from ships in the area just off Jupiter Inlet. Ships that went down centuries ago. Here's a sneak peek at their operation. Up and down the Treasure Coast just offshore, there's no shortage of treasure hunters. In fact, step on board the crew of the Sea Hunter out of Jupiter and you'll see their passion up close. It's so real, they don't even consider themselves treasure hunters. Instead, they're treasure finders.
It's got nothing to do with money. It's about finding treasure.
The adventure begins with a 350-year-old Spanish ship that sunk right off Jupiter Inlet.
The San Miguel de Arcangel that wrecked here in the winter of 1659-1660 had about 100 people on board.
And lots of treasure as well, including silver and gold. Over the past week, the crew found more than 50 Spanish colonial coins.
You're probably holding one of the only known in that condition with that much detail through it after so many years of being down. You're probably holding the only known specimen, which if that's the case, it could take it into the six figures.
It's a sight to behold, and one these treasure finders get to experience day after day, knowing there's still much more out there.
We're following a trail out to where the ballast pile is. When we get there, that ballast pile should be 80 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 3 feet tall, with just treasure all underneath it.
And there are lots of treasure hunters out there. Joining me now with more on the riches of the deep, Captain Dominic Addario, the owner of Jupiter Wreck Incorporated. Captain, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good to be here.
You brought your riches with us. I feel like we're real rich today. We've got a lot of loot in front of us, and we're going to get to a lot of this, including a very special piece of treasure that's inside here. You'll see that coming up. But Captain, first of all, tell us about Jupiter Wreck Incorporated. Where did you get the idea? When did this all start?
Okay, Jupiter Wreck Inc. is a corporation of which I am one of the major stockholders. I'm the original principal investigator of the shipwreck site. It was founded in 1987, and it was founded in July, late July, but in the beginning of July, July 13th in fact, two surfers fell off a surfboard one day, saw a cannon sticking out of the sand, and told a friend of mine who was a lifeguard about the cannon and anchor. That's how this whole thing started, like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn.
And from that point, you basically literally dove in and decided you wanted to put your hands on this to see what else was down there, right?
Well, at first, we called up a local think tank called Continental Shelf Associates because they were doing a survey out in front of the inlet. And I said, why is my friend the lifeguard and his surfer friends finding a cannon when you're out there supposed to be finding things for the government? And they said, oh, no, that's not cannons, that's dredge pipes. So I called up Peter, the lifeguard, and asked him to go back out there and look a little harder at it and make sure it was a cannon. And about 20 minutes later, he called me up huffing and puffing and everything else. He said, Dominic, the dredge pipes are over there, about 120 feet away. This is a cannon. And I then called up the state of Florida that day and said, they're building a local museum here in town, and it appears my friends just found a cannon out in front of Jupiter Inlet. The first thing the state said to us is, well, you can't go in the water anymore there. We already know that's there. And I said, what do you mean you already know it's there? They said, oh, we know there's something out there. But I said, well, this is Jupiter. If we don't do something about this, it's going to be gone in a week. The lifeguard wants to put it in his backyard.
And so from that point on until today, obviously there's been a lot of effort to get the rights to this. You got the rights.
We got the rights.
You got the rights to this. So now, essentially, just to take our viewers to a better understanding of this, you yourself with Jupiter Wreck Inc. can go in the water right off Jupiter Inlet and dive and salvage this. No one else can really do that within regulation.
I was instructed by an Admiralty attorney, the same attorney that won the cases from Mel Fisher and Key West, to go down to the federal courts, and an Admiralty claim was filed against the shipwreck. And I was named the substitute custodian. They literally sent U.S. Marshals up to my marina and arrested the cannon. They said, Cannon, you are hereby under arrest. I was trying to take a picture, and the marshal said, no, you can't take a picture of me arresting the cannon. I feel like a fool. But they literally arrested it, put it in the custody of the federal courts, then appointed me the federal substitute custodian. The way we got ownership was we were awarded ownership of the shipwreck by the federal courts based on the merit and risk of our efforts.
As we talk here, I know we have some video that we want to queue up and run. We also have some treasure here. So over the years, since '87, when you first dove into this, how much treasure have you pulled up in terms of dollar amounts?
It's kind of hard to say because the price range of artifacts, it starts from bullion, and then you get 500 to 1,000 times bullion value and better for particularly rare coins. Like the gentleman, the specialist who you brought in, has mentioned that coin was worth 6 figures. Well, that's a Lima, Star of Lima 2 Real. Now this particular coin here is an 8 Real Star of Lima, 1659. These coins could be worth $300,000 to $500,000 a piece.
Wow.
If we find a gold 8 escudo from this mint, it's going to be worth over $1 million. One coin.
One coin. Wow.
So this shipwreck could be worth $250 million to $500 million.
Let's dive into this pile of loot that we have here. And while we talk about this, I want you to go over, are we talking about multiple shipwrecks or one single shipwreck? And I want to start with this particular piece as you answer that question, and you can explain this piece and then follow up with the answer.
Well, what's interesting about treasure is when you're walking down the beach, probably any one of you may have stepped on a rock or picked up a rock like this. And Carlin White, one of the oldest, he's about almost 100 years old now, but he was the mayor of Jupiter. They named the bridge after him. He tells people about how he used to pick these stones up and toss them and skip them in the water. Well, if you look at this closely and look at the edge, you're going to see that there's 3 coins in there. Anybody that picks up this rock and throws it back in the water might have thrown $3,000 to $5,000 worth of coins back in the water. This is what treasure looks like when you find it.
It's all encrusted.
It starts out like this. You know, it starts out, unless it's gold or silver. They call gold a noble metal because incrustations don't stick to pure gold as rapidly as they would any other metal or object. Now here's another metal object. These are interesting.
Real quickly though, I want to show the final product. So you said it starts out like this and then it ends with this when you're done. So essentially you'll clean and polish them.
These are coins that we purposely keep together rather than break loose. You'll see a little later while we don't break this loose. But by keeping this encrusted together, it gives you a better chance to see the steps, the stages the coins have to go. Now this is another group of coins that are encrusted. If I just clean these, I'd be turning them into lumps of silver. But here they're an educational artifact. And that's why we keep these like this. And if you can see the process, partially cleaned, fully cleaned, and you can actually see the impression of the coin in the incrustation there.
And is this from one ship again, or is this from multiple ships?
So far, we believe everything that we've found to date on this shipwreck is from one ship. And the reason we hypothecate that is we've got a very tight date range of coins. Now, we found over 16,000 coins in the last 24 years on this shipwreck, but the coins date range is from 1652 to 1659. The most coins that we found were from 1658. The least number was 1659. So we started looking into the research into the archives for maritime disasters and events that happened at 1659 or there later. And we found some research.
And this was hurricanes that basically took these galleons?
Hurricanes usually took these galleons, but I believe our shipwreck wrecked in a northeast storm that are prevalent for this area. When a northeast storm comes, we don't get as much protection from Jupiter northward as they do from Jupiter southward. And a sailing vessel, that didn't have a motor at the time, would be driven on the shore, the western shore, the eastern shore of the Straits of Florida, which is here in Jupiter.
All right. Unbelievable, fascinating footage here. I know we've got a lot more to get to. I want to take a quick commercial break here, and when we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to have more treasure hunting and more treasure inside this chest here on the outside of this break. We'll be right back.